And now, from beyond our dimension, this is the JeffMara podcast. Here's Jeff.
My guest is Sarah Starr, Galactic Conscious Guide, who explores spiritual awakening, disclosure, and higher dimensional reality through a grounded, real-life lens. Sarah, thank you for joining me and welcome.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you.
Well, Sarah, I found you on TikTok, and in one of your videos, you were talking about how people want to know if you're an alien and or if you're here to prep the humans, the aliens, or both. So can you share with us what's going on?
Yes, of course. So I'm a higher dimensional soul. There are certain periods in time in human development and evolution where higher dimensional souls are able to incorporate into a human physical body on like a third dimensional density. This has happened in the past, but we're at that cycle again. And I'm one of many higher dimensional souls that's able to come in without a, so to speak, veil. So I can see through a lot of the things that have been controlling factors on planet Earth. I also come in with higher knowledge. I remember my past lives. So yes, I'm in a human body, but I have a consciousness connection that's much bigger than the forms that we have. And right now we're at a pivotal point in time in Earth's evolution where the civilization of the human population has a choice where there's a frequential split. The elites know about it. The military whistleblowers, they know about it. We're secretly kind of coming out with this disclosure aspect. But this hybrid kind of deal that we're dealing with is a part of that. And the people who are ready to take this step come out publicly, talk about who we are, why we're here, but more so in a very grounded kind of way where you're still in the reality of 3D planet Earth, but you're incorporating a much higher consciousness level to advance our human evolution consciously. So we can step into a higher civilization because we're right at that merge point right now.
Would it be accurate to say that you are some type of ET that's having a human incarnation?
That's a good point. Yes. Sometimes I don't like to phrase it that way because people they get confused or they think it's a fantasy. So it's more of yet again trying to ground this into a human perspective that technically, I mean, if we want to put it into those terms, yes, we're aliens, but we do it in a way where we can not really invade, but this is a way that we can step over going through like these laws of non-interference. If we're born onto the planet Earth and we can abide by the human laws and the rules and the regulations and the waking up process of all of this, we can kind of turn this around from the inside out. And that's what they didn't really realize that all of these fractal souls were doing when they came in. But surprise to them, we're here and we're awake and we're finding each other mostly through social media networks where we are looking for the people who have the same type of information or the same type of experiences because we need to build a strong community frequentially as like this grid operator as well, but it's also a soul connection that we need to have and create like a stronger process for everybody. But yeah, that's a good term.
Well, it sounds like you were born with abilities. Did you have this realization as you were growing up, or was there some event that kind of pushed it over the edge for you?
I've kind of always known since I was a child. And there's stories that lead up to this of me growing up, certain phrases that I would say. I remember a lot of my past lives. It kind of took me my whole life to remember a lot of those little bits of information. I remember what I looked like. I even wrote a book when I was in first grade about a planet that I lived on called Planet Lots of Water. I believe I was talking about Mintaka. I talk about religion wasn't a part of it, that we kind of raised each other in a very wholesome community, that we had animals and things like this, that we didn't really have to like eat. There was like different soluble substances and things like that. I talked about like the home structure, but it kind of just always was with me as a child that I'm not from here. And I questioned that to my parents and my grandparents and any type of authority figure. I always question, why are we like the education system? Why are we learning this? Why aren't we questioning this? I would ask questions like, well, if we're having all these wars, who's starting the wars? Like nobody would talk about these type of things. And I just always question religion and the authority, like, why are you believing this? But it just felt not right, because that's not how we live on different planets and in different dimensions. We have a higher way of living, a higher way of thinking. So when you come into planet Earth and you have this veil on you, it's it's hard to use your discernment when all of these different factors are literally controlling and programming you on how to think and how to act, and to think that that's normalcy, but it's not. So a lot of the things that, yet again, I had growing up pinpointed that I'm not from here, and I'm okay with saying that. I'm wholeheartedly know that, but nobody is from Earth, and that's what I try to help other people remember too. Nobody is an original soul incarnation from Earth. This process just keeps going. When you pass away, you'll understand the progression, and you keep moving, and it's just how the universe works. But I also had experiences growing up. I had this absolute complete fear when I was a child, specifically around grays. I remember what their skin looks like. I remember what they felt like. I remember not really, he wasn't like my dad or anything, but there was a male Palladian figure. He was always like more of like a holographic kind of deal. Like the grays would come, they got me when I was little. And then he would be on board, but he was more of like a holographic kind of deal. So that showed me that he wasn't really there physically. He was on some sort of other dimension, and he was talking to me, and he was always very reassuring. And he always talked to me like I was family, but I know he wasn't my dad, but I knew he was family. And he would tell me like, where were we going? The first time, okay, the first time the Grays grabbed me, and that's all I remember. The second time, I think I was around 6 or 7. And when I was around 6 or 7, I remember specifically it was more of an out of body experience. So they took me aboard the ship, and then he specifically told me that I had to go and play with these kids. And I was like, okay, I guess. I felt like I was being babysat, but I didn't quite understand what he was doing. He was an authority figure, and I just listened. So he took me into this room, and there was a whole bunch of different kids, and they kind of all looked like me. They were blonde, they had blue eyes. Some of them had larger eyes. Some of them have different type of skin and things, but we were all supposed to be playing together. And there was also like this education factor. And they had these translucent screens. But they weren't like glass or anything. It didn't seem like it was hard, because when they touched it, it would move. It would like it was alive. So it's like an omnipresent technology. And so they would go and swipe through these like really, really fast. We would sit down and we were like watching them, and we would like telepathically just take on whatever knowledge that they were doing. And I remember him saying that this is used for the future. And I was like, what? That doesn't make sense. And then honestly, from that moment on, I had a lot of my childhood memories just completely blocked. I don't remember a lot of childhood memories. And I think that whenever, and especially if you're out of body and you have these experiences with interdimensional beings or extraterrestrials, what they do when they come kind of back, especially if it's like a trauma factor, they'll do kind of like a memory wipe. And that's what happens is, especially when you're younger, those childhood memories can be wiped away, mostly due to the trauma factor, but also due to this type of memory wipe technology that exists. But it's mostly for the experiencers. But here's the thing, as progression happens and frequential energy comes in, those memories pop back up. And you kind of reconnect all of those things. And I'm able to do that without regression hypnosis, which is wonderful. But there are people that do need that little extra help to remember these things, because the majority of the human population has been abducted or has had out-of-body experiences, whether they're astral projecting, going into the fourth dimensional realm, whether they're remote viewing. There's something that is there that the majority of the human population has connected with.
The way I understood you earlier was that humanity has a choice. What is the choice?
So the choice right now is a frequential choice, and it goes in different layers. What happens is that, especially during this time specifically, there's different timelines, but specifically, there are two timelines that split off at a moment of like a molecular, like frequential quasi kind of split. It's an invisible type of split, but what happens is that there's a frequency barrier, and lower frequencies cannot go past this certain barrier. Now, lower dimensional entities thrive in lower frequencies. We're at a third dimensional level, so nothing, I mean, it's 2D, 1D, and then phantom dimensions. So that's all that is going to exist past this frequential barrier. What we see now is that we have an option of staying in this fear, in this desensitization kind of fear level, or we have the choice of going past that and gaining more knowledge and being curious and accessing these higher frequencies and doing a lot of this shadow work. So it's a really important time in human evolution. That's why you're having a lot more of these UAPs and this disclosure right now. That's why the Greys came back in the 1940s. There's a really big reason. They also have genetic code markers within certain humans. So there's an evolutionary split point that's really important right now, not only just for the human population, but also for all of the genetic markers in these other interdimensional beings, because they're technically family. They hold genetic markers as well. So they try to see how the human evolution is going to happen, because if it lowers at a lower frequential level, kind of the same catastrophic Atlantis situation happens, and they know about this. This is why they have these underground bunkers. This is, they're preparing for this. But we have a significant chance, and this is what I feel, I see, I know, that we are going to be on this different timeline. I'm getting goosebumps. Literally, there's my confirmation. But we're going on this different path. I think the human population, genuinely, we're all connected. We want the best for each other. We're seeing that. We want everybody to be thriving. We don't want to be starving. We don't want to see other countries going into war and having all of these issues. At a soul level, humans are very creative, loving beings. The majority of us, I would say 99% of us, are that kind of type. But the powers that be, the controlling factors, the media narratives, they're trying to sway you. They're really trying as hard as possible to lower your body into something that is going to be stagnant, so they can feed off of you in the lower densities, because they can't reach past that point. They're trying to get as many humans to stay there for their feeding source. But if we go past that and we gain awareness and we understand who we are and what's happening, we get out of their grip, and they have no choice but to follow the positive timeline and the destruction and the collapse of the whole system.
Which ET species wants to feed on humans?
There are different types. There are physical bodied ones, and then there's also like these phantom dimension energy kind of ones. Some of them don't really have faces. People recognize them kind of as like demons, but they're just shadow sides of fallen angel, shall I say, or like these archetypes and things. And they fall and create these different pocket dimensions, and they kind of invert in each other. And that's what these phantom dimensions are, past the 2D and the 1D kind of densities. But if we're talking on a physical aspect, obviously the big ones that had a huge loosh farm, or these Alpha Draconis, a lot of them are not in this galaxy sector anymore. They already transitioned them out of this sector, but we have remnants, and we also have these other civilizations mostly tailored to the Orion constellation, the lower half of it, actually, it's the lower half. And these can be in forms of a lot of these grays and things. They can do these type of loosh harvesting, but it's mostly tailored to these reptilian types. That's just their energy source. They have, a lot of them have been on planet Earth way before the human population were here. A lot of them lived underground. They were here during Atlantis and Lemurian times. Not necessarily were they all evil or, demonic or anything, But the majority of them, this is how they feed, and they feed off of energy. So while you and I have to like eat physical substances, they create this energy loosh. And it's not just on the third dimensional plane. They also have access in the dream realms and the fourth dimensional plane. So they can siphon energy through that as well. But when we talk about these loosh harvesting aspects, it's usually centered around these reptilian types because that's ultimately their food source. That's how it works.
Well, I was checking out your YouTube, and a lot of your content involves the sun. What role do you think it plays in these frequency shifts?
That is a great question because the sun is an amplifier of a lot of these different frequency shifts. The sun specifically, not only is it a portal and things like that, but it is the biggest driver in our space environment. So solar flares, they get released, they release this radiation, high cosmic radiation across a whole spectrum of different things. And this includes X-rays, gamma radiation, and that is kind of like this immediate effect in Earth's upper atmosphere. In the ionosphere, it highly charges it, which is why we see a lot of these radio blackouts and the sunlit side during these strong flare events. They cause these massive geomagnetic storms. They kind of dissipate the magnetic field itself, and then higher waves can come in and integrate inside of your physical body because you are also bioelectrical. And then we have these big particle events. So NOAA calls these solar radiation storms. This is also associated with high level protons that come out from like plasma from solar flares. By the way, plasma is consciousness, and that's what you're made of. But these measure like the spikes of energetic photon flux. So it's like protons, shall I say, protons hold mass. So you can physically feel the protons as they come in. It's the last particle that will come in. You get hit with photons first, then electrons, and then protons come later. Solar radiation storms can last for days, and you will feel this. But this also affects satellites. This affects aviation at high latitudes. This is where astronauts have a really hard time on the International Space Station. So it's a bigger energetic context into our system. But spiritually, this is how you kind of frame it, because the sun is like this giant amplifier, and it synchronizes everything into a specific rhythm. So when, say, the outer environment, it gets louder, then people who are already sensitive or empathic, they can feel like their inner world is a lot louder as well. This is where you get downloads, more realizations that come in. So what I kind of do is I help you understand how the sun doesn't really control you, but it mirrors what is revealed already within you, and maybe points in your system that may not be able to come out. So it's more of the light comes in, but something in you actually has to come out. You have these blockages. Usually it's in these chakra systems. This is where grounding is really part of this scientific aspect of higher gamma radiation coming in, because not only are you bioelectrical, but you have the ability at 7.83 hertz to measure up to the same earth frequency. So if you're grounding barefoot or touching a tree, you're actually connecting to Earth's grid. When our planet sits inside of like this space environment that changes, that moves, that breathes, the sun constantly just emits these charged particles. We call them solar winds. Like coronal holes can create solar wind speeds. Solar radiation bursts, so solar flares, that is a burst of radiation across that spectrum again. CMEs, coronal mass ejection, these are massive clouds of plasma, and they throw it at the magnetic field and then along these like cosmic gateway lines throughout the whole entire solar system. So when those interact with Earth's magnetosphere, this and the ionosphere, we get these geomagnetic storms that can measurably affect that radio communication and then the human population. The real thing is trying to be practical about the translation between it all and noticing the changes within yourself without exactly reacting to the outside reactions.
With your psychic abilities, do you foresee any solar storms or a big solar flash coming anytime soon?
Yes, I do. And I've been talking about this for years. I started talking about it probably 4 or 5 years ago specifically. I don't know how. I know these things that happen with Earth and the interaction with the sun and energies and particles. For some reason, I understand quantum physics, and my job is to help other people understand that there's going to be changes in our atmosphere, specifically that have to do with the sun. And when they talk about the solar flash, what they're talking about is these CMEs, these coronal mass ejections, the solar flares. That's what they're seeing. That's what the Carrington event was in the 1800s, and that's what we're seeing now. So we're seeing geomagnetic storms and the aurora borealis go very far south, and it's happening more and more. Even this year, I think we had 4 or 5 different points in time where even if you're at high latitude position, you usually always get to see the aurora, but mid and low latitudes, we're able to see the aurora, and these are the physical cosmic effects that come out of it. So when people are talking about the solar flash and waiting for it to happen, it's been happening. It continues to happen. I mean, we have a trans-equatorial coronal hole literally right now that's producing all of these geomagnetic storms. It increases this. So we have not only a solar flare threat, but this coronal hole that keeps rotating around and creating stronger geomagnetic storms. It creates this electrified ionosphere within our planet. So they're going to be switching with the solar effect. It's usually always 2 different effects. So there's 2 narratives. There's the natural occurring side of it, and then there's the artificial side that they amplify. So we're fighting 2 different factors, but the solar flash is very real. It is happening. It has already happened. It's going to continuously happen, but it comes in these waves, specific waves. There's a first wave that has happened. The first wavers now they're woken up. They're kind of the stability, the foundation for this disclosure age. We just had another solar flash. This kind of amplifies the energy of these second wavers. And I see another very large effect that is going to be coming in 2026 and in 2027. I mark it down, I look at Vedic and tropical astrology, and I kind of see where the energy is going to be most amplified, and also look at my outside sources with disclosure and see what's going on in the outside world. How do we regulate this in reality? Or how do we dysregulate it? How do we take out the middleman so the truth actually comes out? But I think what it happens is it goes down to individuals, and then of course the collective conscious mind on what they're going to pick up on. So is this a delusion? Where is your discernment when these things happen? What media narrative are they pushing at the same exact time that we have higher cosmic energy coming in, when they know that there's these transition periods? The solar flash is a effect of people's consciousness waking up to that. And it comes in effects of power grids shutting down, and perhaps that's what the human population needs, is a timeout.
Earlier, you mentioned that consciousness is plasma, and a lot of people see these plasma UFOs. Have you seen those? And if so, do you think that's just a consciousness up in the air?
Yes, that's exactly what that is. So if you're a higher dimensional being, say you're from Arcturus or you're from Andromeda, what you have is the ability to access a Merkaba. This is a light body where you don't need a physical ship to go anywhere. You just use your own thought. It's an omnipresent yet technology. They're very advanced. So that's what you're actually seeing. You're seeing these orb effects, but they're literally Merkabas of higher dimensional beings that pop in and out, depending on what their agenda is. Like I said, they do have stock here on certain human genetics. So they pop in, see how they're doing, especially right now. But a lot of these orbs that people are seeing are exactly that. And it's funny because the drone situation, of course, with that was them monitoring the and then lying to the public, which I thought was so silly. But I guess, disclosure takes time. So yeah, the orbs are technically just these Merkaba light bodies. Now, if we're going to be talking about craft in general, like a physical form craft, some of these do perceive to have like this light omnipresent technology around them. There's like a bubble that forms around different crafts. It's like a protectional kind of thing, and also glows. There's different colors that are associated with it, depending on the race and things. But those can also be mistaken for these like plasma orbs. But it's all circumstantial. You know what I mean?
Do you think that there are ET crafts in our orbit? And if so, do these solar flares and flashes affect them at all, or do they have some type of shielding?
That's a great question. Yes, they do have a type of shielding. They're familiar with how our sun works, the plasma density that comes from the sun. They know how to measure the flares when they come in, but ultimately they already have a shield that's surrounding their ship. So the solar flares don't really have an effect. The only effect that it could have is the perception of people actually seeing the craft in the sky, because they do have this technology where they can make their ships look like clouds or kind of like transparent in a sort of way, although you can kind of see the magnetic field around their ship, so it's like distorted in a sort of way. So you will be able to pick up on a lot of those different things. But yes, they're monitoring the skies. They live underground, they have portals in the ocean, they live amongst us. I mean, it's there for the people to see. And I think the best thing about space weather and these solar flares is that people's eyes are to the skies, which is really good. They should be to the oceans and to the skies, if they really want this full type of disclosure, because that's the safest point for them to be. But yes, that's exactly what you're seeing. But yeah, their technology kind of protects them from our tiny sun.
From your perspective, how does contact work, and why do some people experience it and some don't?
What happens is that they will only approach you if you are ready for this type of contact. And you have to consciously get involved with them. So, this is through a lot of shadow work, a lot of meditation, connecting through them consciously. It's also a trust process with yourself that you can actually do this, that is going to happen. But there's patience that comes with these type of contact events. And I know that there's different organizations that are working with C5 events. I know Skywatchers is using a questionable technology to get their attention, which I don't 100% agree with. I think it's better if we are consciously connecting through them, because they connect through you through resonant frequencies, and that usually forms in the sense of trust and love in those type of higher things. And they can feel this and they can sense this and they feel that connection when you call to them. But you have to be very patient with the progress of disclosure, because this isn't just going to happen in 1 year or 5 years. This is a lifetime event of disclosure. Even when we pass away, they're still going to be moving on with disclosure in this contact process. But it's not going to be the government that is going to have contact. It is going to be the civilians that have the contact. It's going to be the experiencers that know about this type of thing, that want this type of thing, and they really want to change the world at a whole different level. So we're looking for those type of people that are able to connect their consciousness, or at least practice doing that. And then when we get into larger groups, which will find each other eventually, we'll be able to have a mass open contact event. But contact is going to happen through the dream realm first. It's the safest process. It's the easiest process. And then everybody on Earth can talk to each other about how their dreams are all meshing up together. And it's not a coincidence. And that's going to be a real awakening factor to a lot of people.
What does starseed and or higher dimensional soul mean to you?
So a star seed is a higher dimensional soul that's able to reincarnate during light frequency processes when you get to a certain barrier. So it's more of like these souls carry memory, they carry the resonance of higher dimensional realms, they carry a lot of they carry things that are beyond like the earthly origin of consciousness. So we see things that are a lot bigger. But practically, it shows up in people who are sensitive. It shows up in people who are very purpose driven, or people who have like these, unfortunately, these pattern recognition things from trauma based off of like their childhood. There's a deep discomfort in these type of people with living unconsciously. So these people resonate with more of a higher form of living, don't quite fit here, don't understand the mechanics of having a 9-to-5 job or paying bills because money doesn't exist anywhere else. So we question these different things, but it's not like a status, it's a type of wiring. So we're like the new form that comes in. And it's not like you're just this human in a body. You carry this cosmic orientation for the change to happen. Like I said, this is like a lifetime, long-term evolution type thing. We'll be able to have higher dimensional souls incarnate. Most of the children here on Earth are higher dimensional souls. So this is just the cycle and the process of how this happens. But the human population is going to be waking up to these things because the majority of us are higher dimensional souls. It's just a lot of them have been trapped in this reincarnation process, mostly due to like the moon technology and things. But since that has been disabled, you're able to pass on and actually leave your soul. You can actually leave, and you don't have to come back if you really want to. But I believe many people do carry this type of soul frequency with them, especially right now. I mean, it's almost inconceivable.
What is this moon technology that you referred to?
So the moon technology, there's so the moon is a biosphere. So there's many different species that live on there, the many different agendas. Not all of them are negative, but they have this technology that they brought in place, like with the Anunnaki. What they did was when the Anunnaki left, they left a lot of these Lyran refugees. By the way, the Anunnaki are Lyrans. So these Lyran refugees stayed here on Earth, and these fractal souls got trapped in this reincarnation process, and they did this on purpose because they knew that there's going to be a point in time that there's going to be a frequential barrier where they can only have so many souls to siphon off of. So they kept this technology in place as long as they could to keep the souls from leaving. They wanted as many as they could, and they kept a lot of them trapped here. This is like a false light technology. What happens is that like you go to the light, but what you're doing is you're literally going to the moon. You're going out of body into the moon. Your soul is already there. They kind of go through the process of like whenever you have like a near-death experience, they'll show you like your life, you know, your decisions. They'll show you the perspective of other people, but they have these false people in place, and they tell you, you didn't learn this, you didn't learn that, you have to go back. There is never a time that when you pass away, other than here on Earth or a trap, that they say you have to go back. You always have the choice to move on if you want to. Always have that choice. But this moon technology has been disassembled by the Galactic Federation a while back, actually. So these souls are finally able to leave if they want to and never come back again. But we're past that barrier. And it's a really important conversation that we have about the moon, because this is going to be one of those disclosure aspects that opens people's eyes to a whole different reality, because the moon has always been there since you were a kid. Nobody really knew what it was actually there for, you know?
What are fractal souls?
Okay, so fractal souls are, okay. So when you come, say, we're just going to talk about Earth for a second. And this, we're going to talk about the Lyran souls specifically, because these are the fractal ones. So when you have fractal souls, and there's only so many human bodies that it can be in, they split into different people. So you could have 10 different fractal souls or one fractal soul in like 10 different people. You know what I mean? So they're just split points. And you find each other, you remember each other. You can even find fractal souls of you. That's why you resonate with a lot of these people. You feel like you're very familiar with them. They feel like family. This is unconsciously you in past lifetimes remembering who these people are. But when you come into Earth, it's a really tough planet to be on because there's a memory wipe system. They put that in place specifically because it's a learning type of atmosphere, but it's the hardest place to be, especially when you're trying to rescue these souls, because they've been here for a long, long time. So we're in a transition period.
So are you saying that before a soul reincarnates, it fractures itself or splits itself and reincarnates into multiple bodies?
Not all souls are like that.
But
These are
some.
more, I'm talking, yes, correct, some of them. Some come in as a whole soul. Mostly the higher dimensional souls that came in during this process are those type of souls. But with this moon technology, they fractal off. They just keep fractaling off until they finally converge, kind of like at this point after that they pass away and become a whole. But it's not all souls that are fractaled.
Would you say that twin flames is an example of that?
Twin flames is a little bit different, but yes, in a sort of way, because you do have this connection tied to these people. Karmic is a little bit different than a twin flame, but you do have this soul connection with these people. It is very amplified. You almost mirror each other. You bring out the best usually in each other. Karmic relationships, like I said, are very, very different, but those can also be a part of these fractal souls as well. But it's kind of circumstantial with the twin flame situation.
Well, besides the solar flares, do you see anything coming in our near future that we should get prepared for?
Yes. Yes. And I've been doing this on the down low for a while now because I know the process is going to take years and years and years. But what I see is that there is going to be not only a power grid shutdown to kind of like quiet everybody, and then a lot more information is going to be leaked out because when the power grid shutdown happens, there's going to be behind the scene things where they eliminate things on a quantum kind of computing level. They retake over AI. It kind of switches into a different frequency. And then they're going to be placing a lot of these little disclosure elements all over the place, mostly on electronic type devices, because that's how people are getting their information. But it's going to be spread out to a lot of people. But this is a drip pace disclosure thing. We don't want the whole shebang to come out at once because there will be catastrophic events that will occur. The civilization itself will completely just collapse on each other, and it'll be really bad. So we're doing this at a drip pace. It's really frustrating because of the patience level and the years that it's going to take to get this information out. I know we've been talking about the e-files coming out and things like that, and it's not going to the civilian, the civilian level. They want it all dropped at once. There's a reason why it's not all being dropped at once. There's other disclosure aspects in all of these different things. So it's more of, I see people questioning their reality. I see the psyche changing and I feel the psyche changing of people. I see fear in people, but I also see yet again that first wave, that stability, those foundation people that have been doing their research. They know this is real. We're going to be the pillars for these people to step on and say, hey, I got you. I have the information for you. Don't freak out. Everything is going to be okay, because it's going to change everybody's perceptions of reality. And it's not just on this quantum computing level, it's also on a financial level. It's also on a religion level. So it's many different layers all stacked on once, but it's going to be moment by moment, little tiny pieces that won't overwhelm the human body because the capacity is only so much. So I see it happening. I see big occurrences happening. I see environmental changes that are going to be occurring, especially with seismic activity. Tsunamis will be an effect of that. We're already seeing these things. And this is associated with coronal holes and solar flares. That's kind of what brings all of this on. And yet again, this is a cycle that has happened over and over and will continue happening over and over, whether it's a human population or some sort of civilian population that looks different than us. It's going to keep happening. And it's the realization of being controlled, but stepping out of that control in a very calm and mature manner, to switch the whole civilization evolution of everything, because we have to make a stand. And it's not going to be the governments that are going to hold our hand and make it pretty, sunshine and rainbows. It's going to be the civilians that have had enough and are just going to do it themselves. And that's where we're at.
Do you think ultimately disclosure is up to the ETs and not humans?
Yes. It is. It's always been that way. It will continuously be in that way. They'll even go as far as taking information out on an electronic grid if they have to be, because we see these different timelines occurring and it's very precise on what we kind of unfold at this pace. Because if we go too hard on one aspect, they're not going to understand this and integrate this first. So it's more of contact will come later. Extraterrestrial disclosure will come later after we understand the earthly things that are so detrimental to everybody here on planet Earth. It's those things that we have to handle first. We have to do our own shadow work. We have to settle into the reality that our reality wasn't this perfect little bubble that we were accustomed to. So it's really, yeah, it's up to them whether we like it or not. They have full control of this. They will continuously have full control of this, even though they may be doing like these fission techniques with different technologies to get their attention and things like that. They'll still, I mean, it is what it is.
Next incarnation. Are you coming back here or going to the water planet?
I am not coming back here. I did not know what I signed up for when I came here. I don't understand this planet. It hurts to be here. I don't understand why you have to plug things in. I don't understand working. I don't understand eating. I don't understand a lot of different things on this planet, and it's not easy. This is probably the lowest density planet that I have ever been in. I don't understand why you have to work out. It's weird. This is just weird here. So I'm not accustomed to it. It's very heavy. The emotions are really out of control because you only see like a little tiny fractal in a human body. You only understand so much. But when you're out in actual reality, it's so much different. You have this breathing room, you feel lighter, you're happier, you're at a different frequential level. It's wonderful. So I'm personally not coming back unless it's going to be me and my higher dimensional self helping the human population. I don't physically want to come back. It hurts.
If people want to find out more about your content, do you have a website?
Yes, I do. So if you're interested in learning more about me, I have my main page is my TikTok page. I'm also on YouTube, Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can find me at sarahstarrofficial.com. Or if you want deeper guidance, I do intuitive sessions. I do natal chart readings so I can help you understand who you are on a 3D earthly level. It's kind of like a blueprint. Honestly, they should have these for every single person when they're born because it's literally like a blueprint of how your life is going to be. So I offer natal chart readings for people to understand who they are. And then I also offer starseed origin readings where I kind of blow it out and I look at like your planetary alignments and if you have these stelliums and what type of energy is going to be impacted with you specifically tailored. So I do channeled readings as well. I go into the Akashic records. I'm designed to kind of bring you like clarity and grounding and direction, especially if you're navigating in an awakening or if you're feeling overwhelmed by this collective intensity, or if you're just trying to understand your purpose and your path and why you're actually here. My goal isn't to make you dependent on me, but my goal is to help you remember who you are. That's my deal. So you can go to my website at sarahstarrofficial.com. It's continuously going to be building up. It's going to be an education section for everybody. I'm also writing a book. We have a long time for this disclosure aspect to come out. So whenever it's appropriate, we will be dropping these things for people to consume because ultimately we're looking at post-disclosure right now for 8.1 billion people all looking for the truth at the same exact time.
Before we finish up, can you leave us with a last positive message?
Oh, absolutely. The best thing about this in my intuitive abilities is being able to see the future. And I'm so excited about the future. Like it makes me feel like Christmas, like a kid on Christmas Eve, you know what I mean? Because I see it so clearly and I feel the energy of people shifting and like them being happier and feeling lighter and feeling like they fit in and they finally understand. So it's really going to be a beautiful experience, even though we have to collapse all of these systems and it can be really scary. But the future that I see is just absolutely wonderful. And I am so excited for the human population to finally make that leap. So we don't, number one, we don't have to come back here. But number two, they'll be set up for the next cycle to happen. So it's really exciting.
Sarah, thank you for your message, and thank you for being my guest.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks for watching the JeffMara podcast. I really appreciate you. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. And if you do, there are loyalty badges and other perks depending on your level of membership. All you need to do is click the join button underneath the video to find out more. Thank you for your support.